enough. Good evening and welcome. It's always a pleasure to see so many people come to our council meetings. Everybody to our Monday, October 17th meeting. I would like to ask Ms. Bowers, Vice President, to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Let us rise each morning and strive each day to do only that which brings happiness and joy to others, and avoid doing things that cause others hurt and pain. Let us use our minds and our reason to foster behavior based on the mutuality and reciprocity inherent in human relationships. And let us always respect the dignity and worth of each other. And let us, above all, love one another, not to obtain rewards for ourselves now or hereafter, or to avoid punishment, but rather always to bring each other contentment and peace. So be it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou.
Here.
Bowers.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Padova.
Here.
Renner.
Here.
Schnetzer. Here. Weaver.
Here.
Wonderful. Item B, additions or corrections to our agenda. Do we have any? Okay. Item C, hearing of visitors. It is a crowded room. I do have a lot of speaker slips. I do ask that everybody please make sure that your cell phones are set to, they're either off or they're set on vibrate. Thank you. All right, for hearing of visitors per council rules, when I call your name, please approach, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Kelly Shellhammer.
Good evening. Is this on? Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. I am here as a representative of the newly formed Big Walnut Big Band. My name's Kelly Shellhammer. I am the artistic director. The idea of this group was formed before COVID, and so we had to take a pause, but we were able to get this group up and running during this last year. And I'm here just to introduce the idea to you folks and let you know that we exist. And I thought it was appropriate, since you passed a resolution 2 weeks ago, that for Arts and Humanities Month here in Gahanna. So we are formed, 68% of the group is our Gahanna Lincoln High School graduates. Of the remaining members, we are all either retired or current teachers in the Gahanna schools, except for one. And he lives in Gahanna and had children graduate from Gahanna. So we are definitely a community group. We are a big band, or jazz band you might call it, and we perform the music of people you might know, like Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Tommy Dorsey, and the like. And we are about pleasing our audiences, much as the late, great Louis Armstrong, great trumpet player and jazz performer, was all about that as well. This summer, we performed a couple of times. We performed at Boom at the Brook, which is Stony Brook Church's celebration while the fireworks are going on the July 1st. That was our inaugural performance. And then we performed again at Sunrise Assisted Living up Hamilton Road. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. We went there specifically to surprise Mr. Robert Kessler and his wife, Suzanne. They are residents there. And some of you may recognize the name Bob Kessler, who was the Gahanna band director from 1955 to 1985. And he was extremely blessed that afternoon. Bob performed with the Woody Herman Big Band when he was in college. I don't know if anybody knows that name, but very well versed in the music of the big bands and jazz, and just very knowledgeable, and loved that performance. Some of you may also know that just Saturday we celebrated Bob's life. He passed away last month, so it was very good timing that we were able to perform for he and his wife on this horribly hot, sunny afternoon in August. And here's just a short example of our group from this summer. And Jeremy, unfortunately, that's the wrong video. I had a great video of In the Mood, you know? It was In the Mood, and the wrong one. We had, Jeremy and I had some trouble with our little communication this afternoon, but thank you for trying. I appreciate it. We are very interested in performing at Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival next summer and any other summer opportunities that might come our way. And we are also in conversation with the Arts Council at this time. So, like I said, I just wanted to introduce us to you so that you knew that we exist and we are a community group. And I want to thank Trenton especially for communicating with me as well in recent weeks. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, Max Orsley, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Max Orsley. Address is 691 Vivian Court. So I just wanted to come today to speak about speeding and road behaviors in our city, particularly around residential streets. I live on Cherry Bottom. I like to go throughout the city, either walking or biking. I like to take my kids to the parks that we have all around us, but I do not feel safe crossing Cherry Bottom Road with the way people drive. So I just want to use this time to challenge the city to create infrastructure that is more pedestrian friendly, that is more cyclist friendly, that is more than a speed limit and enforcement after someone already breaks the rules. Put in traffic smoothing, put in different surfaces that slow people down, ways that change behaviors rather than punishments. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have gorilla arms, so I'm having a little trouble doing this. Okay, the next batch of speaker slips. Carly Booz.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Good evening, Council President, members of Council. My name is Carly Booz, and I'm the Executive Director at the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio. I'm here to thank you for considering source of income and pay-to-state ordinances that are now under review. These are timely and reasonable measures that respond to pressing needs in our community, and I'm grateful for your leadership in debating them. I'd like to begin with a short hypothetical. Imagine if you won the lottery, and in an instant, the weight of the world drops off your shoulders. How you're going to pay for your kids' college, how you'll retire, how you will support your parents in their old age, all of it drops away. The Lottery Commission calls you, and they say, we have a check. Where would you like me to send it? So you go to your bank. And your bank says, we'd love to take this, but that's too large of a deposit. That requires specialized staff, and we don't have it, so no thank you. The next bank says, regrettably, you wouldn't fit in here. You're new money. We can't teach you how to be rich. We do not want your deposit. The next bank says that they would love to take your money, but they're actually a really bad bank. And they're afraid if you bring that much money in, the regulators are going to find them. And they're going to come looking for them, and they're going to close them down. So they say no. The next bank says that they're opposed to gambling, and they won't bank with you on principle. The next bank says that lottery winners have bad attitudes, so they say no. The next bank says that the lottery program is too slow and too clunky, so they say no. The last one says that although you're a millionaire now, you've overdrawn your bank accounts in the past and you're a real credit risk. So they say no. And here you are at the end of a very long list of banks who have all said no. And you have to go back to your family and tell them that money, that lifeline, is not coming. Now consider that this wasn't the lottery. This was your retirement check. This was your disability benefits. This was your child support payments. This was any other source of income that you have rightfully and lawfully relied on to support your family. That is source of income discrimination. And that discrimination is pervasive in Franklin County. Among single-family rental owners, only 51% accept supplemental security benefits, which are primarily designed to help people who are blind and disabled. And only 47% consider rental assistance, including from our veterans. This takes a toll on families as well as a community. It grows more difficult for employers to recruit staff without access to nearby housing, and it strains the social cohesion of our community when our families are forced to relocate away from the neighborhoods they've called home because their income sources change as they walk through the different stages of life. The proposed source of income ordinance will resolve this. Separately, but equally importantly, I want to thank you for including pay-to-stay provisions, which codify an existing defense to eviction and ensures even and predictable application of the law. Ohio is one of only 5 states that lack this, and I saw that come and didn't think I could get there.
You can finish your thought real quick if you want.
Thank you. I want to say that these pay-to-state protections now cover over 1.4 million Ohioans, and they are together part of a body of laws that protect our individual rights to be free from discrimination and our ability to overcome economic hurdles and create a prosperous life for our family. The Alliance supports adoptions of these types of laws, and we are thankful for your leadership and stewardship in having this discussion tonight. I'm happy to answer questions if you like.
Jerry Valentine. Hi, Jerry.
Good evening. Thank you, Council President and members of council, for allowing me to come up here to speak in favor of the proposed source of income discrimination ordinance. My name is Jerry Valentine, and I proudly serve as the founder and CEO of a organization called Renter Mentor. We are a for-profit social enterprise with a mission to help connect people to affordable housing and other supportive resources. As a former employee of the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority, I have been able to work closely with residents all over Central Ohio through the voucher program and really got to see how difficult it was for them to really utilize their voucher as well as other folks who receive similar subsidies. The voucher program was established to give low to moderate income residents who have received the voucher housing opportunity and choice. And instead, the program has given recipients a stressful 90-day housing search process of a limited inventory of private market housing, making them more vulnerable and subjective to housing scams, predatory landlords, moving into higher concentrated areas of poverty, failure to utilize the rental subsidy, and even worse, forced into homelessness. All landlords who connect with the voucher holder and participate in the HCV program must go through a 3-step HUD compliance process orchestrated by the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority. The 3 steps consist of submitting a request for tenancy addendum, passing a housing quality standard inspection, and executing a housing assistant payment contract. The basic structure of the HCV program is governed by HUD rules and regulations, which all property owners should already be following these housing quality standards to some degree per local code and enforcement. This structure is intentional in order to protect federal dollars, but more importantly, to protect the core rights of tenants and landlords participating in the program. Although HUD sets the majority of the program rules and regulations, public housing authorities have discretion to determine many important elements of the administrative process of the program. This is important to highlight because participating landlords need to know that they can voice their concerns with the public housing authority and allow them to express and use their discretion. One of the biggest misconceptions and concerns property owners and operators have about source of income discrimination is about lowering rents, and that's simply untrue. The vouchers amounts are determined by fair market values, household composition, and household income. If a person applies to a unit that is above the voucher income threshold, that landlord has the right to deny that tenant still. In closing, I would like to assure all property owners and operators that there are mission-driven organizations here to help them navigate through misconceptions and any type of administration mishaps. With that being said, I would like to thank Councilwoman Bowers for bringing this to the table and you all for considering for passage. Thank you.
Thank you. David Rierson.
Good evening, Council President Renner and members of Gahanna City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of the ordinance to protect people from discrimination based on their source of income. My name is David Ryerson, and I am Assistant Vice President of United Way of Central Ohio. United Way supports approximately 100 Franklin County nonprofits who every day serve some of the most vulnerable residents of our community, meeting basic needs and ensuring children are successful in school. Source of income protection will help our nonprofit sector be more successful. In order for nonprofits to be successful in their work, families must be stable in their housing. This legislation will help improve the success of nonprofits in our community, helping people to meet and fulfill their potential. We believe that this ordinance is critical to the residents of Gahanna. Many people have income from Social Security, child support, alimony, disability income, veterans programs, or government housing programs. And this is an important protection that can help to expand the housing choices available to voucher holders, including in resource-rich neighborhoods where affordable housing options might otherwise be unavailable. There are over 400,000 people in Franklin County who live at 200% of the federal poverty level, or approximately $24,000 a year for a single adult. Thousands of people in Central Ohio are denied access to safe, decent, and sanitary housing options annually due to their source of income. This refers to their practice of refusing to rent to a housing applicant because of that person's lawful form of income. Often, the denial of housing will serve as a pretext for a prohibited form of discrimination and disproportionately affects renters of color, women, and persons with disabilities. As a result, source of income discrimination contributes to the perpetuation of racially segregated communities and neighborhoods with concentrated poverty. Children are often hurt the most by these types of discrimination. As an example, national research shows that children who grow up in a concentrated poverty by the age of 5 are already 1.5 years behind middle-class children in their academic achievement. Most children will never catch up, putting them behind academically and economically. Housing stability solutions are the right thing to do to ensure children are successful in school and contribute to building a strong future workforce. Everyone in Central Ohio is having difficulty in finding housing, but it is a crisis for low-income people and those with government support. After a decade of chronic underbuilding and unprecedented population growth, Central Ohio home prices and rents have been climbing considerably faster than incomes every year for a decade. This has hurt those with limited income the most, as landlords have been able to use a higher level of scrutiny when accepting future tenants. Lastly, source of income protections are good for the economy. Central Ohio continues to attract thousands of jobs, and we're expected to grow by another 1 million people in the next 30 years, the same amount we grew in the past 30 years. We all play a part in creating a more just region for children and families. And this legislation is the right thing to do for children and families who struggle. We thank the Gahanna City Council for all your work towards supporting this important housing justice work. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Igdaloff. Did I do it right? Awesome, awesome.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak on this important meeting about source of income discrimination and the ordinance that we'd like to pass. My name is Shelley Igdaloff. I'm the mother of 5 children, all of whom have benefited from the education Gahanna Public Schools had to offer. I spend a lot of time in the Gahanna schools, volunteering much, and many of the students thought I was staffed there. So I honestly saw how wonderful our Gahanna school system is. I'm grateful for your willingness to support an ordinance in Gahanna to protect people from housing discrimination based on their source of income. This type of measure has been passed in many cities across Central Ohio, and we want to count on our Gahanna community to become part of this positive change. Research has shown that children who live in stable households in higher resource neighborhoods like Gahanna, even for a few years before reaching the age of 13, have improved long-term life outcomes, including earning higher incomes, more likely to attend college, less likely to become teen mothers, and have much lower risk of severe anxiety disorders. Opportunities for success are greater for households in communities that have protections prohibiting discrimination based upon source of income, as this opens doors to affordable housing throughout the region. I'm here tonight to ask that you pass this ordinance. My children have been successful after graduating from our outstanding school system, and I would only want the same for others who may be economically or otherwise challenged. I see only an upside to supporting this measure. I hope you will adopt this protection to show that Gahanna is a welcoming and inclusive community, as so many others are. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlene Sheik.
My name is Arlene Sheik, and I reside at 1410 Sedgefield Drive. Although I have a New Albany mailing address, I am very pleased to be a citizen in New Albany, in Gahanna, for almost 6 years. I am here to support the proposed Ordinance 6061, which makes me very proud to be part of this community. This proposed housing legislation reflects a determination of fairness and facilitating good relationships between renters and landlords. This legislation creates a fair housing officer who can exercise mediation of complaints as a starting point. There is a fair housing board and a process. I like the way the Fair Housing Board is comprised of 3 people from different wards of our city, with both city council and the mayor appointing these individuals. I especially like putting into law that a variety of income sources are not barriers in Gahanna, as so eloquently has been pointed out by others. I appreciate the initiative and leadership of Marissa Bowers on this matter and the support of all council members and our mayor and city staff. I appreciate you all trying to expand housing in our community in fairness and access, whether renting or buying. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last speaker slip. Council has introduced a special feature on our website for video upload in case you can't make it to council. And so we have our first speaker from video.
Hi there, I'm Rob Tarr. I am the senior pastor at Gahanna Community Congregational Church, right up the street from City Hall, across the street from the high school at 470 Havens Corners in the heart of Gahanna. I am excited and thankful today to be able to speak on behalf of the currently proposed housing ordinance, in particular, the provision in it that gives protections for people so that they are not dinged at all on applications for housing based on their source of income, whether that be disability, veterans benefits, any number of things that can be part of people's life experience. There's a group of us in Gahanna that have been talking to folks in the city about this for a little while, and so we really appreciate not only the responsiveness on that particular provision, but also the willingness to take a thorough and comprehensive approach in working for fair housing to be enshrined in the laws of the city. As a pastor, I work regularly with folks in my church and with people in the community who may be going through different types of hard times or just have low margins as a regular part of their life experience. And I know then from that, as we walk with them through life, as we even provide financial assistance sometimes, that housing in particular provides a really important foundation for people to be able to thrive in life in general, especially if that is taken care of, so many other things that can be part of life experience, can be part of juggling seasons of difficulty. Suddenly you're able to thrive when you know that at least housing is taken care of. And so making sure that that is accessible to people of all experiences, of all life circumstances is really important. And especially because I know that Gahanna has the values to be a community where everyone can have a sense of common cause, a sense of common value, and that all of us, no matter what our circumstances are, can come together as one wonderful and thriving community. This is a way to express that value in the legislation that we write. So I hope that that does get passed. I encourage all of you to vote for that and to see those values enshrined and to protect and preserve the ability of as many people in Gahanna to thrive, especially as we're growing, as things are changing. This will be a great way for people in our community and who may want to come to our community of all different experiences to have a wonderful experience in the community and to have the platform to be able to contribute to the community. I'll mention also briefly that there are people within our congregation who themselves are landlords and who really appreciate when cities have specifically legislation on the books that helps them express their values that much easier because it is supported by the laws that they're supposed to follow. And the folks in our community who do that care about making housing accessible, and this will only help them from their perspective as well. Please do vote for this legislation, and thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Pastor Tar, if you're watching, thank you for your comments, and also thank you for being our first video upload and knowing that feature actually does work. So,
It should go into a plaque.
yeah, we should go into plaque, that's right. All right, moving along. Item D, public hearings. We do have one, believe it or not. Time's up, forget it. So, I'm still learning how to play with this stupid thing. All right, so hearing of visitors. So council, we do have rules about this, and I know it's crowded. I do have a stack of speaker slips, and what I want to do is slow down a little bit and explain how this works. We're going to ask the administration prior to opening if they have any comment or wish to actually say anything. The public hearing shall be opened with proponents being allowed 7 minutes. That means all proponents, 7 minutes collectively, not individually, but the proponents as a group will have 7 minutes. Then the opponents will have 10 minutes. And the same thing, as a group, 10 minutes. So you might, because I do have a lot of speaker slips, so just be mindful of that 10-minute mark, because then after that, it's closed. Then it'll go back to, for rebuttal by the proponents, which will have 3 minutes. And again, collectively, 3 minutes. Okay, the administration, do you guys have a comment or anything you want to showcase about this public hearing?
Thank you, Mr. President. Michael Blackford, Director of Planning. I know we spoke about this a few times. A lot of people here tonight, so I'm going to be very brief. What I'd like to do is just, for everybody's benefit, just talk about what we are here to talk about tonight and what we're not here to talk about tonight. And so up on your screen, this is a site layout that was part of the rezoning application. This is a conceptual site plan. What a rezoning application does not do is approve, site layout. If the rezoning is approved, that comes afterwards. So again, tonight we're not considering the site plan that's before you. What we are also not considering, this was part of some information that was provided, this is a rendering. We are not here to consider renderings. Again, we're here tonight to consider a rezoning, not the actual project. So not site layout, not renderings. Tonight does not authorize construction. If the rezoning is approved, has to come back before Planning Commission, additional public hearings to outline that. So again, we're not here to discuss that tonight. So you might be asking yourself, what are we actually here to talk about tonight? Well, it's not very exciting, but what you see on your map here, or sorry, on the screen, is a zoning map. And here in yellow is the subject property. And it's really quite simple what we're here to talk about. Should this property be rezoned to MFRD, which is multifamily residential? That's all we're here to talk about, changing the color of the map from yellow to red. Now, what do those two designations mean? Yellow is estate residential. We talked about this previously. Again, that is a large lot, 5-acre single-family zoning that allows for agricultural types of activities, farming, things of that nature. In red, MFRD, multifamily residential district, that allows for multifamily. So what we're here to consider tonight is changing the map to allow for multifamily on this piece of property. And with that, I'll be very brief. I know we have a lot of people here. I know some of them aren't maybe strictly proponents or opponents, So don't know how that gets handled, but I know some of them are maybe more neutral. So with that, thank you very much for your time. I'm certainly available to answer questions now or later. And thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Beckford. Okay, the public hearing is now open. Now, before we proceed with the proponents first, I do have a speaker slip where somebody stated that they have a neutral position. We don't have a lot of room for neutral on this kind of thing, and so I'm going to be asking this gentleman to actually consider, are you going to be a proponent or opponent? Leo McCann. Is Leo proponent? Okay, so you'll be part of, all right, so let me go ahead and.
I apologize, Mr. Ray. Opponent.
Opponent. Understood. Let the record show.
More than 12 hours today. Just like everybody else here.
Today's been a long month.
It has been a very long day. Okay, good. Then you will be part of the group for the 10 minutes. Thank you. All right, let me start with allowing the proponents being allowed 7 minutes. So let me call for proponents. Well,
Hi again. Do I have to state my name and everything?
you state your name.
Okay.
And
Max
and
Orsley,
address.
691 Vivian Court. I want to speak tonight in favor of the zoning change. I moved to Columbus in 2015, and in the communities in Columbus, Gahanna was one of my first choices. Unfortunately, it was outside of what I could afford. Housing has never picked up from the Great Recession of 2008 to keep up with demand for people who want to live in these communities. I think Gahanna is great. I want more people to live here. I believe that more housing availability will bring prices down to achieve those goals. What I want to challenge is with denser zoning, with more people, that we put into consideration more pedestrian focus and more accessibility to our businesses so they can also thrive in these changing times. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, would you like to go? Okay. All right.
Hi, Monica Morgan, New Albany, Ohio, owner of the 14 acres. Just still wanting to pass the zoning because I'm worn out. And I really feel Stonehenge is going to make a great property. They're going to make it beautiful. Thank you again.
Okay. Doug.
Good evening, I'm Doug Irvin, 147 North High Street. I'm also with Stonehenge Company. I'm a proponent of this, and we've gone through a lot from Development Commission and Committee of the Round. We've thrown out a lot of numbers. I'm not going to go through those again and bore you with that. I do think it's important to point out, you do have knowledge. We have met with both officers from both condominium associations on 3 occasions. We did issue a letter that you have a copy of where we made commitments. And one of those commitments is that we keep talking, and that it is a participatory process where they're informed of if this were to be rezoned, you know, what our intent is, and that they be aware of that before we present that to any public body. As it relates to numbers, I gave you a bunch of school numbers, I gave you a bunch of TIF numbers. And one thing, I understand municipal finance and income tax is very important. I think it is important to point out that if we were to proceed with this zoning, I would have anywhere from 251 to 400 residents, roughly. And of that, they have to have jobs because our rents are going to be $1,400 to $1,900 a month. The 15 of 22 political subdivisions that we surveyed have an income tax lower than the city of Gahanna. And I did confirm with the Regional Tax Authority that Gahanna would capture that difference. So I kind of am a jobs generator, or as far as income tax, if you look at it from that perspective. One other point I want to make is that multifamily housing allows people like my kids to live in Gahanna. They can't afford a $300,000 to $600,000 house, but if they're making $60,000 to $70,000 a year, or they're a teacher, or providing great services to our communities, they need a place to reside that's affordable. And I think it's very important that we preserve these opportunities for everyone to be able to benefit from all of the great services here. Again, we're local, we're neighbors. We want to be good neighbors with all the folks around this site. And we would very much like for you to rezone this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Huffman.
Good evening. My name's Dennis Huffman, 737 Windward Lane, Gahanna, Ohio. I'm the president of Windward Trace Community. And of course, our community is not happy about this proposed project on Moores Road. But we have been meeting with Doug quite a few times and expressing our concerns. Stonehenge has agreed on leaving as many trees as possible, and also has agreed to an 8-foot privacy vinyl fence along the property line. We hope to continue working with Stonehenge, Doug, to do so if this rezoning is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more speaker slips for proponents, but I believe we still have time. Yeah, a minute. Are there any other proponents that wish to speak right now? Okay, moving on. Now I am going to call for opponents, and I do have speaker slips. I'll go through them methodically. Mr. Leo McCann, you're first up.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Leo McCann, 1261 Amberlea Drive West in Gahanna, and I am president of the Amberlea Village Condominium Association. Thank you for your time this evening. After much thought and deliberation, meetings with council members, Mayor Jadwin, meetings between Windward Trace and Amberlea Village Condominium Association and the developer, we've worked with our residents and unit owners at both communities. We'd like to talk about tonight the proposed zoning change and development. Our position is still that we feel we can work with the developer on items that include, but not are limited to, building height and arrangement, the setback provisions, fencing, the lighting fixtures and the lighting setup, rain gutters and the retention pools, rain gardens and the retention pools, trash compactors, and of course the trees. We'd like to approach this zoning tonight in the spirit of collaboration and working with the developer, council members, the mayor's office, and the developer. The planning commission will be our focus going forward. We think we can create a situation, an apartment complex that benefits Gahanna and of the surrounding area, including the residents that are already established there. At this point, we feel that a position of neutrality in regards to this proposed zoning change and development is appropriate. We want to work together with all. And again, I am looking for commitments from the developer as well as the Planning Commission that we work together in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Thorne?
I would like to cede my time since we have so many speakers.
Okay. Well, I think you might, I'll come back. Edwin Douglas.
Good evening. I'm Edwin Douglas. I live at 725 Windward Lane in Gahanna, and I am the treasurer for that association. What we're really opposed to isn't so much the multifamily residential zone. What we're opposed to is what I'm opposed to is changing it from a single-family residential. I think in the long run, I think that would be the best interest for our two condo associations, and it may even be in the best interest of the city. Nevertheless, if there is no appetite for that with the council, then I think that, as the others have said, we have worked with the developer, and we can continue to work with him and hopefully make the changes that will make this development as attractive to all of us and protect us from the concerns we have. So that's our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Thorne, this is the last speaker slip that I have, so I'd like to actually give you the floor.
Thank you, Council, for allowing me to speak. I am a 20-plus year resident of Gahanna, and I'm not actually near the Morse Road development. But I do want to point out that part of the reason that I moved here, that my family chose Gahanna when we came to Central Ohio, was the green space and parks that the community seems to value so highly. I mean, practically everywhere else in the city, you're within walking distance of a park. I must point out, though, that in the northern triangle here, where the development is being considered, there are no effective parks. There is no walking distance to any park there. Matter of fact, I can imagine those 400-odd people in the development later on wondering where the parks are, wondering where they can walk their dogs. Oh, quick, honey, let's jump in the car and drive 2 miles over to Hannah Farms so we can walk the dog. I'm not sure they're ready for that kind of alteration. I'm hoping that the city can work with Stonehenge to create more green space. The precedent is there. Almost every other development, recent development in Gahanna, has green space associated with it. Even the park, which has the same density as the proposed 14 on Morse, has basically a parkland buffer all around it. So I'm hoping that the council will not abandon this concept that's kind of driven development in Gahanna for so many years, and that there will be some green space set aside or some negotiation to set up green space and parkland near that development or somewhere in the northern triangle where these new 400 or 500 residents can access these amenities, because they are as much an amenity to Gahanna as the shops or anything else that we have. I mean, it's a green city, very green and treed. Please, let's not make affordable housing synonymous with ugly, gray, and dense. I don't think that's how Gahanna works. Thank you.
Mr. Thorne, before you leave, can you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, name is Robert Thorne, and address is 210 Creighton Court in Gahanna on the west side.
Thank you. We have about 3.5 minutes. Are there any other opponents that wish to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the opponents, and now we'll move to where the proponents will have 3 minutes. Now asking for any proponents. Yes?
Yes.
State your name and address
Max
for the record.
Orsley, 691 Vivian Court. I just want to remind everyone, as the planning director did at the start, that this is about zoning, not the project, not the development. And all the feedback I've heard from opponents is about development, about housing, heights, setbacks, and everything like that. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be very brief. Doug Irvin, again, 147 North High. Even though some of the comments have gone beyond what we would consider with this zoning action, I do want to be responsive, and that is I want to echo Mr. McCann and Mr. Hoffman's remarks. I have been working with them. They're great people. All of their residents that I've met with have been very respectful, and we've had a good dialogue, and we're going to keep that going. As it relates to green space, we do have dog parks, even though we will not have a dedicated green space that is true public realm that would be managed by the city. We do understand that if I don't give people some places to have recreation activities or stretch your legs or assemble and have a good time, that it could be a detriment to my real property. So we very much program amenities so that there's a high quality of life for all of our residents, including outdoor recreation space. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Where are we? About a minute and a half. Any other proponents? Okay, then thus close the public hearing. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody participating in that. And I'm still trying to figure this out. Okay, all right, moving on. Item E for the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as published?
So moved, Mr. President.
First by Mr. Snetzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Weaver. Any discussion? Okay. Jeremy, please call the roll.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Item F, resolutions. We do have a resolution. Marissa, would you like to read this?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Earlier this evening, we had the privilege to welcome Chief Spence, Battalion 131 Chief Lowe from Mifflin Township Fire Department, and Ladder Company 131, also from Mifflin Township Fire, along with Community Liaison Officer here with the City of Gahanna, Kelly Moffett, and Curtis Hill, who is a lieutenant with Delaware County and a resident of Gahanna. We were able to thank them in person for their service as we have on the agenda tonight a resolution designating October 28th, 2022 as Honoring First Responders Day in the City of Gahanna. I won't read the entirety of this resolution, but I did just want to note in here that first responders and their families are asked to and willingly make sacrifices and put service over self when every day is different than the last. And that we acknowledge that funding and resources are necessary for priorities such as wellness programs to address mental, physical, and emotional health issues unique to first responders, recruitment and retention efforts to restore workforce levels that suffered during the pandemic, and the onboarding and ongoing training costs as we ask more from our first responders on a daily basis. First responders deserve to be recognized and deserve to be supported, not just on October 28th, but every day, for their commitment to safety and in the emergency and field medical treatment delivery, defense of our communities, and for their continued expressions of integrity and dignity in their line of duty. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do I have a motion to adopt said resolution?
So moved.
One by Angelou and a second by Mr. Snetzer. Any discussion? Any further discussion on this? Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou?
Yes.
Schnetzer? Yes. McGregor?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item G, ordinances for introduction, first reading. Ordinance 63-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Michael Schuster Associates, Inc. for architectural and engineering services related to the renovation and expansion of 825 Tech Center Drive and declare an emergency.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like, we briefly touched on this last at our committee of the whole meeting, and there's a financial reason for moving this forward. I would like to make a motion to waive second reading of this ordinance.
We have a motion on the floor to waive second reading on this ordinance and move to adoption then?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
A second now by Ms. Angelou. Any discussion? Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank Ms. McGregor for voicing the concern that I think a lot of folks are facing in their own lives as costs are going up. However, on this, I feel a second reading is warranted. It's another opportunity for the public to participate and comment. Let alone, I also think on the financial side, it does seem that construction costs are beginning to come down. It's a difference of 2 weeks in the delay, or I don't even want to call it a delay, but going the normal route with a second reading is 2 weeks difference. So I would oppose.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just a clarification. The administration has requested emergency on this so that it would be in full force and effect without the 30-day time period in order for the ordinance to take full effect in order for a recall vote. But I don't believe that the administration had requested us a waiver of second at the time it was presented. So I think just I wanted to note that.
I would just say that the quote that we were given was that the emergency was because delaying it for a month would cost about $100,000. So if you say it's the process would take 2 weeks more, that's $50,000. And in today's market, I think if you can save $50,000, it's worth doing for something that's not controversial and it's going to pass, and we're going to pass it anyway. It just would be 2 weeks sooner.
Any further discussion?
I think there's one.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mrs. McGregor, and I think that we all, I certainly acknowledge that there's a fiscal responsibility that we have, and if there was going to be that cost differential, I certainly would support the second, the waiver of the second. I think my concern with this and what I recall Mr. Schultz saying at committee was that they really just wanted to be able to move this forward before the end of the year and before the holiday season lapsed. So I guess I just want to clarify that opposition to this, I would certainly not wish to cause $50,000 of increased cost to taxpayers, and I don't believe that that was what was expressed at committee.
I think that was what was expressed.
Mr. President, I guess in response to that, would it be prudent to perhaps ask the administration to weigh in? Do they think there is any cost savings in expediting this by 2 weeks?
Thank you, Mr. Snetzer.
Who are you?
Kevin Schultz, IT manager, project manager on the 825 Tech Center Drive project. Thank you, Mr. Renner.
Thank you.
Yes, we have heard from construction professionals that we do see about $100,000 increase in costs from month to month, and that Ms. McGregor is accurate in saying that this would save us, the city, about $50,000 over that 2 weeks. We were mindful of the points that Mr. Weaver raised, and that's why we proposed emergency to start, to have it go through that initial second reading. But the sooner that we get started on this project, as you guys have all deliberated on for multiple meetings now, the sooner we get started, the sooner we actually get into a construction phase, and that provides the most benefit to the city. So that 2 weeks is a benefit to us. Ultimately, with emergency, it does get us started in early November. So.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Part of the duties of actually going president, sometimes I get to go last, and I just want to be able to put my words in edgewise on this. This item at the Committee of the Whole was actually the very last item. I was reading through something, and I wasn't very cognizant to where the discussion was going. But I just wanted to state for the record that I think we sort of screwed up in Committee of the Wholes, and this should actually be only one reading and the move to adoption. It's not like a question that we're not going to do this. We've been talking to the community very loudly and very transparently that we're going to actually move City Hall and the facilities. So I strongly support the motion that's on the floor of waiving second reading and moving to adoption. Any further discussion?
Just like to thank Mr. Schultz for giving his input tonight. Thank you. That's helpful.
Mr. Weaver?
Want to echo Ms. Bowers and also thank Mr. Schultz for the additional clarification. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one thing. The word
Please.
inflation, the longer we wait, the more it will wait. It just will not happen. So that's why I'm with this with Mrs. McGregor.
Thank you. All right, Jeremy, please call the roll on the motion to waive second reading and move to vote for adoption.
McGregor,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner.
Yes. Hey, ordinance is now passed. Thank you.
No, we have to move, now we have to adopt.
Okay. Technicality. All right, so let's move to actually adopt ordinance 63, 2022.
So moved.
First by Ms. McGregor, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Bowers. Any discussion? Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll on the vote.
McGregor,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance passes. Thank you. Item H, ordinances for second reading. Ordinance 56-2022, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Gahanna adopted by ordinance 198-96 on November 19, 1996, and subsequently amended, changing the zoning district of 13.96 plus or minus acre parcel located at 5503 Moores Road, parcel ID 025-011219, from estate residential-1 ER1 to multifamily residential district MFRD, project Moores Road 14, Scott Harper applicant. Do I have a motion to adopt said ordinance?
So moved.
First by Ms. Angelou, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion?
Sure, Mr. President.
Mr. Schnetzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess to my council colleagues, I know I'm not the only one that received the memo from the law director. Amongst the many factors that we're supposed to consider when facing matters such as these, there's a few that are laid out in section 1133.03 of the city code, the first of which is consistency with the goals, policies, and comprehensive land use plan of the city of Gahanna, including any corridor plans or sub-area plans. The city's comprehensive land use plan was unanimously adopted by council in September 2019, just over 3 years ago. As a member of the Land Use Plan Steering Committee, along with my colleague, Ms. Bowers, I recall the great lengths taken to solicit resident input, including area commission meetings, public meeting sessions, a statistically valid telephonic survey, as well as an online survey. I also recall the deep well of knowledge drawn from and afforded to the steering committee by city staff and the hired consultants that helped craft the plan. For all of these reasons, I believe the land use plan should be our primary guiding document for decisions pertaining to rezoning. So in that vein, I reference page 40 of the land use plan discussing the results of the public input sessions, whereby a ratio of 3-to-1, some version of office and/or commercial uses outnumbered medium-density residential as a desired land use in what is depicted as Focus Area 1, the North Gateway. Further, the map on page 51 shows the prescribed future land use as mixed use. Land use plan does go on to describe mixed use and notes that it can be vertical in nature, of which, to anyone in this room, a quintessential example of that type is Creekside, or it can be horizontal, whereby perhaps an office is situated next to a row of restaurants and a plaza with open space for socialization. In any event, the document is clear that the uses should be synergistic. And it's on this last point, it's hard to see how a standalone multifamily development situated along a busy vehicular corridor at least 3,000 feet away from the nearest entertainment and dining options at the intersection of Morse and Hamilton meets the spirit of mixed use. So in conclusion, not only is the requested zoning a departure or rezoning a departure from which that is laid out in the land use plan in plain English, it doesn't come close to the spirit of prescribed future use. So for these reasons, regrettably, I won't be supporting the rezoning that is in front of us this evening.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Oh, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think, like many of, probably all of my colleagues, we spent a lot of time over the past couple months now weighing the factors we're told we can consider. And but first, I want to just thank everybody for the dialogue. Thank everyone who's participated in the public comment, both here and at Planning Commission, or who have otherwise reached out to us. I think Director Blackford put it well. Ultimately, the question comes down to determining what is the best use for this parcel of land. The land use plan, which is beneficial, is a guide. And I would argue that a lot of history has transpired since 2019, including a global pandemic that has changed the landscape of what Director Blackford's team gets calls for. It's clear that we're getting calls for housing. We're not getting the calls for commercial development like we used to. In looking at the factors, I do believe that MFRD matches the compatibility of the area. It was also listed as an option in the land use plan. In weighing the particular application for rezoning here, council is not to consider any of the particulars for design that have been put forward by the developer. We heard that from Director Blackford as well, and from City Attorney at previous meetings. Those aspects are still to be brought before the Planning Commission as part of the final development plan. So I cannot and do not consider those particularities from the developer's overall proposal. That said, I have asked and confirmed at Committee of the Whole last week the fact that there are variances and conditional uses approved by the Planning Commission are able to be considered, but we can't consider the specifics of those variances and conditional uses as they relate to this particular overall proposal. So we are faced with recognizing what those variances and the conditional uses that were approved are, because they are directly tied to this rezoning application. And to me, it brings up a larger question of process in terms of how council receives a rezoning application, whether those variances and conditional uses should be approved at the same time as the rezoning application is approved by Planning Commission and sent to us. But I also understand that if it weren't, and just a rezoning application was submitted, then the question is, well, what's the plan? What is the goal for the property? I say that to almost tee up the conversation for the future for what that process should look like, but is not a factor in my ultimate decision here. So what does this mean? Ultimately, I come back to the question of what is the best use for this property, and I do believe it is multifamily residential. As the process is currently written, there are additional considerations to be had before Planning Commission with the final development plan. I'm going to encourage the developer to continue to work with the residents and the HOAs and the Planning Commission as the project, should the project move forward, but I will be supporting the rezoning.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Ms. Padova.
Thank you. I have heard and appreciate the arguments made for and against this. Myself and Councilman Schnitzer and the mayor spoke with many of the Windward and Amberlea residents last week, and I do appreciate all of your feedback and comments on this. I have, over the years heard the mayor mention multiple times how much we need apartments and a more diverse housing stock. I've also we've been hearing from different organizations here in the last few months, also talking about how we need a more diverse housing stock. And as well as going to the MORPC Summit on Sustainability last week, that was also mentioned quite a few times as well. So I do think that it is appropriate to rezone this multifamily residential. There are other apartments across the street as well as down the road. And I actually have driven by there a few times, most recently today, just to take another glance at it. And the 3-story apartments down the street don't stick out too sorely, so I don't think that this would be something where it really sticks out and doesn't fit into the neighborhood. And while I know we can't consider this project in our decision to rezone this, I do appreciate that Stonehenge is working with the condo associations, and it sounds like there has been some progress made there. Even since last week, it sounds like there have been further conversations, and I sincerely hope that that continues and that you all are able to continue as if this is passed this evening. So I will be voting in support of this and hope that things continue to go well if this is passed.
Thank you. Any
Mr.
other-
Chair, I think we have a person named Monica Morgan, who's the owner of this property. And this property, it's her, under her, what she wants on her property is for something else to be there. Beautiful place. And it's difficult when, things like this are happening. But this is your property. This is her property. This is not Stonehenge's property at this point. This is her property. So this is what she wants. She wants something really beautiful to be there, which I'm sure this will happen if this is what she wants. And she's been, and how long have you owned that property?
Personally, only 21 years, but it's been the family since
Forever.
1944.
Okay. 1944. That was one year before my birthday. So I honestly think that we need to point to that this is a person who has a property that wants it to be exactly what we are going to be voting on tonight. And I thank you for being here each time to suggest it. And I'd like to say, I worked with some of the people from this. They asked me to come and see them, and I'm a believer in this. And my first thing was, because I've been on council a very long time, was I remember when I was called. We were working on condos, and everybody was saying, no, you can't do it, no, you can't do it, no, you can't do it. Well, we did it, and look at all those condos there. The condos that you are there. They're there because somebody said, yes, we will put condos there. And I think that we should be doing what the person who owns this property wants to have happen. So that's why I will be voting for it. And I know that the people are working to make this very, very good for the people that are in the condos now. And I think you're going to be very happy at the very end of it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I would like to actually just state for the record a couple of comments. As you probably have heard or picked up innuendos about where my head is on all of this, when I look at, when there are zoning questions before me, I'm a big constitutional guy, and I'm going right to the property owner's rights. I do appreciate zoning. That's why we don't have casinos next door to schools. We should have good, proper zoning. But there is a balance on those rights of the property, the owner of the property, and what's going to actually be developed. This land actually sat vacant for many years, as we've heard testimony to multiple times. And yes, our land use plan said it preferred to do it something else, but you know, I'm also a markets guy, and sometimes the markets, they shift on you, they change, and it's shocking sometimes. And we see where things are actually going. The markets have spoken. A leader in the development community has actually gotten with the owner and started making a deal. And now they wanted to bring it, you know, the city's process is that it has to go through the planning commission. It went through the planning commission, and the planning commission said, yes, it still meets all the tests, the legal tests of actually posing the question. It's not the project, but is the question about the zoning. Is it compatible? Is it consistent with our goals? Do we have the capacity of city infrastructure to serve that? The apparent demand for this types of uses of permitted requested zoning. Those are the things that we're tasked with on council. If it approves, as it moves, then it goes back to the planning, and you do have one member of planning commission that's been watching this, and it's here, that then they will have to take the task to then go that deeper level and answer all the questions that you have brought forth, and to your duty, and that you should. You represented your neighborhoods very well, and I applaud you for that. I also applaud Stonehenge for being able to take the leadership position and actually, in a democratic style, of actually trying to work with some of the HOAs. I understand that it's not really finished, and it's not a done deal with you, but the point is that process has started. There's ink now on paper. We have been presented the same information, the same letter that you've been given. So I can rest on that knowing that a process is taking place. But the higher level question is actually the legal test and the legal merit. In our opinion, does this actually meet these issues, these compatibility and consistencies? My vote is going to be yes on that. Any other discussion? All right, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
No.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
No.
McGregor.
No.
Okay, ordinance passes. Now it goes back to Planning Commission. Thank you very much. All right, ordinance 61-2022, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gahanna, enacting chapters 790, 791, 792 to create a fair housing board, to establish housing non-discrimination laws, and to codify an affirmative defense to eviction, commonly referred to as pay to stay. Do I have a motion on 61-2022?
So moved.
I have a first by Ms. Bowers. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll be brief tonight, Mr. President. Pending after the discussion at Committee of the Whole, particularly last week, I went through with Mr. Malarski and looked at some potential revisions to 790 and 791. Let me just summarize those really quickly for you. So given some of the comments made by Mr. Schnetzer, we tried to see what we could do to potentially consolidate the Fair Housing Board, and so I think the compromise that we were able to come up with that would keep it clean in the code, but also help help avoid some redundancy and maybe streamline the process, was to appoint Civil Service Commission members to the Fair Housing Board. This will, those boards in particular do not meet very often, and so this would help consolidate that and potentially eliminate some administrative tasks for council and the mayor by appointing Civil Service Commission members to the Fair Housing Board. The other change that we made to 791 was to immediately refer matters that came into us on the basis of discrimination that were federally protected classes directly to OCRC, Ohio Civil Rights Commission. This, again, alleviates a little bit of the administrative load that we might expect, so there would be an immediate referral made instead of a fair housing officer making any kind of determination there. The third change that we made based on some of the feedback at our committee of the whole discussion was to, I just lost my train of thought. Was to eliminate the right of a third party to bring a complaint. This way, it must be an alleged aggrieved party that brings the complaint directly to the city and eliminates that third party organizational right. I think that these address the majority of the concerns that were brought up at Committee of the Whole, and so those have been incorporated into the red line version that has been attached to your to the item, to the ordinance. The other thing I wanted to just note, and again, thank you for the incredibly eloquent presentations and informative presentations from proponents tonight. We did receive an email that I wanted to address. It referenced an email from September 9th from Judge Scott of the Cleveland Housing Court. That email was immediately rescinded 2 days later. I have reviewed that email with Mr. Malarski and it was sent to Mr. Roth pretty shortly after it came to my attention. There's also been a legal memo that was drafted by the City of Athens law director that specifically said that House Bill 430 does not preempt pay-to-stay legislation when it's written in the way that we wrote it. So we have been very intentional, I think, in addressing these concerns that were raised to us at 6 o'clock tonight. So that's, I just thank you all. Thank you for your time. I know that this has been a very long process, and I have consumed a lot of your committee hours on this issue. So I do appreciate all of your patience, and I do want to thank the administration and the city attorney's office for your attention to this issue. And thank you to the residents who came and spoke in support tonight. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Snutzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. So if I may, just I guess, a question before a comment, if that's okay? All right, perfect. So since this is the revised red line iteration that we have in front of us, it didn't go, I want to be careful about what I say here. This is the product of our last committee meeting, so it has not been, this version has not been discussed in committee. I just want to make sure that there's nothing material that has changed within the eyes of the Department of Law Director as well as the city administration. Anything here that we should consider, or is this all an improvement in your eyes?
As Councilwoman Bowers said, her and I worked, basically she did most of the work, and then I reviewed it after she did and made a couple recommended changes and things. So she succinctly put forth the three main areas that we changed because we felt those were the areas that were basically brought up by you that you kind of had some problems with, and we think that they address those issues now instead of having just a standalone committee. Well, it will still be a standalone committee, but we don't have all these little committees out there, people with nothing to do. That was the one issue. The other was, well, the one I brought up about having a third party challenge that that's the thing I didn't like about it, which we did change. And then the third thing was how we was the
immediate referral.
Oh yeah, the immediate referral out, so that the other issue you had brought up about people feeling like they just have to go through all these steps and they can do it all over again. We're doing the immediate referral out. So those were the three main issues we decided to do, and that's what has changed, and I'm satisfied with them.
Thank you. So with that, first off, I just want to, I guess, underscore some of the concerns that were echoed in committee were really from the vantage point of, I guess, trying to improve the rate of favorable outcomes. And it sounds like some of these revisions will do that, both with regard to the board, or the proposed board, from the vantage point that I guess our testimony to date has suggested that a standalone board may not meet very often, and that could lead to some dissatisfaction for some of those board members that may be looking to be more active, as well as individuals that are going through this process. As Mr. Malarski had highlighted just a second ago, if there's redundancy in processes before getting a satisfactory resolution, if we can streamline that, then all the better. So it sounds like this takes those concerns into consideration. I think that's better for anyone involved, really. So I just want to extend my thanks to my council colleagues for, I guess, putting up with me, to the administration and the city attorney for their effort in this, and then especially to Vice President Bowers for all of her efforts in working through this process. So I intend to support it. Would encourage others to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to make sure that we have the appropriate version. So did you check in here to make sure that we actually have, or do we need to make an amendment to anything?
We do not need to make an amendment. My understanding is that because there's nothing in the ordinance itself that changed, we will be adopting the red line Exhibit A document attached to this. Is that correct, Mr. Van Meter?
I guess a point of clarification. So the revised document that you had sent was attached as a separate attachment.
Yes, correct. Proposed amendments from COTW 10.10.22, ORD 61-2022, Exhibit A. Proposed Fair Housing Chapters PDF version red line.
So just to be clear, that's what we're currently voting on then?
That's still identified
Or-
as, I guess that's still identified as Exhibit A. We would be voting to adopt Exhibit A. I guess would you like me to, should we take do a motion to amend?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want to make the motion?
I think Mr. Schnitzer should.
Sure, I'll move to adopt ORD-0061-2022 as amended.
I have a first by Mr. Schnitzer on amending said ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Weaver. Any discussion on this? Okay. Jeremy, please call the roll.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGregor?
No.
Padova?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes as amended. Thank you. Let me catch up on, we're down to correspondence and actions. Jeremy, our clerk, do you have anything?
I don't have anything this evening.
Thank you. Council colleagues, do we have any correspondence and actions? Okay, thank you. Item J, representatives, Community Improvement Corporation. I do have one update. Let me get my notes. Gahanna CIC did meet into executive session for Real Estate Committee under Section 121.22 to consider purchasing a property in the city of Gahanna. The dates and times were as follows: Tuesday, October 11th, Friday, October 14th, and today, this morning, at October 17th. All meetings started at 7:30 a.m. and lasted approximately 45 to 50 minutes. Our next meeting is, get this, tomorrow, October 18th, and it'll be 7:30 in the committee rooms. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Ms. Angelou.
Thank you. What a wonderful week we've had, our last week we had, with not only having our commission, but also the Summit on Sustainability. I'm going to start with some of the things on, which was a pretty normal commission meeting. And the one that I'd like to place a little bit of words to let you know about these. The executive director's report included the strategic framework called Pay It Forward. And this is a new item for MORPC. But the strategic framework is Pay It Forward, drive investments, and build value for members. So with that, and the first one, Pay It Forward, is typically our university partnerships, which started, I believe, with Ohio U, and then, of course, Ohio State, Franklin University now, as well as Denison Edge. And it's a fact that anybody that is part of MORPC, or any one of the people that are, for instance, in our particular Gahanna city, can get a negotiated or whatever, or about $1,000 off going into getting their degrees. And so this is a partnership that has been like, I think there have been many people that have taken this into the fact that they can save money and also get their degrees. The second part of it, driving investments, is the internship partnerships. We have had 20 communities that have participated in internship partnerships, and over the last, I think, 3 years, we have had 160 students participating, and then going actually working for the people that they were interned. And then, of course, the build values for the members as well. We also have community partnership with the King Arts Complex. It's an incubator program to take those students that are not doing well in school or in a regular school or don't feel like they have any kind of interest in what they will be doing after school. This is a place for them to learn to be contracting or working into the areas that we will need many people with the intel coming in and with all of the properties. So this is a really wonderful strategic framework, and it's going to continue that way. Also, I think I sent you all some things that came in the mail today. One was from Joe Garrity, and he was, during one of our executive meetings, I said, you know, you're doing so much. You have all of these things that you're telling us. Can we just get them? Can you just send them to us? And I think I sent them all to you, so you can look through those things. Joe does a major work on his particular thing. And now the last thing I really want to talk about is the wonderful Summit on Sustainability. It was so wonderful to be able to be with Kaylee and who was the other person? oh, Jeremy. and I want them to give you their feelings of what happened. So Kaylee, if you want to go first on what your thoughts were on this, I would appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Angelo. I thought that the Summit on Sustainability was excellent. It was really well attended. They had so many really great sessions that it was very hard to choose which one to go to. I know Jeremy and I were kind of looking at them saying, okay, you go to this one, I'll go to this one, and try to get the most out of it. But the two that really stood out to me that were my favorites were one on incorporating social equity into sustainable policies, and also leading the way to more sustainable region. They had a really excellent panel for both of them. The keynote speaker for the day was Nicole Akuma. She gave a great presentation about inclusive leadership, and it was very, very good. I was also introduced to Pika Kucha. Am I saying that right? Pecha Kucha.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to say it, but I am a fan. Amy Acton and Krista and Atha were two of the speakers, and then the third one was Craig Turner from Edge Innovation Hub, which is actually right here in Gahanna, even in Ward 3. So it was really nice to hear those, and I really loved Amy Acton's was great, and we've all seen her on TV multiple times. But one thing that whenever somebody is speaking, usually they come down, everybody's clapping, you know, they sit down, and it's kind of like they do a breath, like, oh, it's over. She came down, and she was like energetic, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of made you like, think even, made me respect her even more, because it was like she actually was excited about just speaking. So it was really good summit, and I look forward to going back again next year.
Thank you. And Jeremy, our clerk here, was there, and it was just such a joy to have lunch with him and Kaylee. And would you like to give
Sure,
your ones?
Yes, and thank you for the chance to talk about it. It was a phenomenal event. Mr. Greenberg from Planning Commission also joined us. And really, the summit, I think, aligned very well to the sustainability agenda of MORPC. It pretty much showcased in every aspect through their breakout sessions. The sessions that I attended were the coffee chat with Link Us and Rapid 5 to learn some more about that. Also, there was a session called Prioritizing Pedestrian Safety, which focused in on the engineering aspects of what cities are doing with mobility and pedestrians to promote safety within the region. And then another session that I attended was on intergenerational equity. Great speakers, great message. I really enjoyed the keynotes, along with what Councilmember Padova said, the Pechakucha, which is, I'm not sure how to compare it to anything else, maybe like a mini TED Talk. I don't know if that even captures what this is, but it definitely encouraged those to seek those out online. One of them had highlighted, actually, or maybe it was another speaker who had highlighted the Grody family and their work within the Gahanna community with Edge. So it was phenomenal to attend. Thank you for that opportunity, and I look forward to the next one as well.
And they are also that pizza place, too.
Yes.
So, and of course, I would be remiss if I wouldn't ask you, Mayor, because you were part of this particular project, I guess we would call it.
Sure. Well, as Vice Chair of MORPC's Sustainability Advisory Committee, it was, I think, first of all, we were thrilled with the turnout. It was, I think we were 3 people shy of breaking the record for the largest crowd. So we were kind of disappointed that we couldn't find 3 more people just off the street to pull them in to break the record. But it's a fantastic array of panelists, as we've heard from Councilwoman Padova and yourself and Jeremy as well. Of course, I won't revisit the issue of the panelists, but talk about the awards that were given out. Ty Marsh, who just recently retired from SWACO, who has just been so impactful in the sustainability community here in Central Ohio for years, and certainly has been a leader in that field. So being able to recognize him. And then Bertie Fields. And Bertie Fields is a woman who launched Black Girls Do Bike. Really connecting, making cycling accessible to all people, especially Black women, recognizing health, wellness, quality of life benefits of cycling and working within the community. So just to be able to distribute those awards and be part of that. And I ended up pinch hitting as a moderator on electric vehicles and energy sustainability, which I was glad I did not have to ask any substantive questions. Just introduce the speakers, but that was a really engaging panel as well. So overall, a great day.
Thank you for that. And I hope that some of you can make it the next time. I know you're busy, and we want you always to come. I know everybody at MORPC would like all of you to come, but unfortunately, jobs are jobs, and other things are other things. So thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Kyla, for showing up on it. And it was certainly fun. Now I'm gonna say this for sure. I absolutely left at 2:15 because I had to go home and watch baseball. So here I am. I hope you don't mind. I didn't take my last few times to do that, but I went to some really wonderful things. My one, I actually stood for an hour, and I thought, well, that's a good thing to do. But everything was just very, very well done, and I think of all the ones that I've seen, and I think I've been at 10 of them now, this was the best. It was the best. And I think it's because of Mayor Jadwin, because she's like the vice chair now of that. So
The team at Morpsey know that, but they did an incredible job
They do an
of
incredible
organizing an
job.
exceptional panel, but thank you.
it's such a joy to be with them. And with that, I'll just let it go.
Thank you.
And I think there is no baseball tonight. I think it's been called off. I don't know. I can't find it if it is.
Mrs. McGregor.
I was going to say, being the greeter and overseer of the bed and breakfast for the Lily Stone Bed and Breakfast for the Historical Society, we meet some really interesting guests. And we had a lady and her husband come a couple weeks ago from Carmel, Indiana. And I'll just tell you, Carmel, Indiana is northwest of Indianapolis, has about 90,000 residents. And she told me that their claim to fame is they have 138 roundabouts in their city. And their mayor has been mayor for a long time, and his goal is to have only one stoplight in town by the time he leaves. And so I thought, who knew? And I just thought that was just very interesting. So that's my comment for tonight.
Yeah, so thank you for that. As I was just told, I skipped through the agenda. This is supposed to be my vacation week, and you can tell I need a vacation. All right, so Ms. Padova, I did not mean to skip you. Conventions and Visitors Bureau, please.
That is okay. I will not hold that against you. Visit Gahanna was recognized and awarded recently at the Ohio Travel Association's Conference on Tourism. They received a Ruby Award, which stands for Recognizing Uncommon Brilliance Yearly, for their annual report. They also received a Citation of Excellence for their Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival event campaign, and they were a finalist in the website category. So this is the Ohio Travel Association's way of honoring those who found the most innovative ways to market their destination as a business, or destination or business. Also, there are still pumpkin entries being accepted for the Creekside Pumpkin Trail. This is taking place on Wednesday, October 26th from 5:30 to 7:30. And this is a chance to get creative and win a prize. In addition to the Trail of Pumpkins, they will also have face painting, balloon twisting, Dr. Dan the Science Man, which I'm sure Mr. Renner would like to see, sweet treats, games, costumes, and other fun surprises. So that will be next Wednesday, October 26th from 5:30 to 7:30.
Awesome, thank you.
Creekside.
School Board, Ms. Powers.
Yes, thank you. Last week, we had a meeting that was the quarterly city and school board meeting with Mr. Renner, the mayor, myself, Dr. Deagle, Finance Chair Daphne Maring, and Board President Burl Piccolantonio. It was an incredibly productive meeting. I thought we had a really great conversation, and it was not produced, right? It was very real dialogue about some issues that we didn't necessarily see the same way on about everything. But overall, it was really productive, and I think that we walked away with the ability to, with kind of some tasks and some things that we were going to look into. The district gave us an update on Phase 1 and Phase 2 of their facilities and capital improvement project. That was wonderful to really get a good walkthrough on that. We also talked about some fairly major kind of issues, I think, that both we hear from, have a perspective on from the city side, and that the district has certainly from a school district side. But ultimately, the issue, what we all realize and what we all know in that room is that we all are here to support our community as a whole. And so I think that came out loud and clear, but still it was a really great opportunity to have some really honest dialogue. The best news that came out of that meeting was that we found out that the lions at the arch to the stadium were saved during demolition, and that they were able to be taken down as whole, so they will be able to be kept for the district and potentially reutilized or given a special home in the future. So I thought that was a really wonderful kind of takeaway from that meeting.
You didn't talk about football? They're doing very well.
We did not talk about football. No, I'm sorry.
They're doing very well.
All right, thank you. Official reports. Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I thought there was one more to go. Yes, thank you very much. So this morning, work began on the Cherry Bottom Road Stabilization Project. As I previously have shared with council, we have been sharing online, this project involves 2 consecutive closures. The first closure is underway now. It's at the northern portion of closer to Morse and Cherry Bottoms, just immediately north of the entrance to Columbus Academy and just south of the entrance to Academy Park. Weather permitting, that should last about 14 days. Once that section is done, that will reopen, and then they will close the southern portion of Cherry Bottom Road right around Stony Brook. We did have a little bit of a hiccup this morning because the traffic subcontractor closed the wrong end of the road. Our team was on it, though. They were on site within minutes, and the whole mistaken closure lasted all of about 15 minutes, but it was enough to misdirect traffic there for a little bit. But everybody's on the same page now, and everything should be fine going forward with that. So just hope we don't get too much rain, and they can get that work done as quickly as possible. But it is critical work to be done. Yesterday afternoon, I was privileged to be in attendance at the Court of Honor for Michaela Barb Cox and Ann Wilson as they attain the rank of Eagle Scout. They are part of Troop 7456 here in Gahanna, and why this was attaining the rank of Eagle Scout is always a huge honor. Very few people actually ever get to earn that or attain that rank. And they are the first 2 women in Gahanna to earn the rank of Eagle Scout. So it was wonderful to be there, to see them achieve that ranking and be groundbreaking and really pave the way for Scouts who will follow them. And you may have seen this on Facebook, and we have not had a chance for me to publicly announce this, but I will share if you have not seen it. On Thursday, October 6th, I had this distinct honor of attending the 35th Annual Conference of the Ohio Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. And the purpose of me being there was to present the 2022 Excellence in Government Achievement Award to our Director of Finance, Joanne Burry. She was elected by her peers for this prestigious award, which is given to an individual who has demonstrated a high degree of integrity, innovation, and exceptional government leadership. And I will tell you that the room at the Hilton was filled wall to wall with people, all of whom were, I think, overwhelmed and extremely supportive to watch Joanne receive that award. It's not the first one she's won this year. She was recognized earlier this year when she received a national award for the, look at you, Kevin, putting that up. You're good. I know. She received the Excellence in Government Leadership Award from the National Association of Government Accountants. And you may have lost count, but she has won the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Award and Excellence in Financial Reporting Award 7 years in a row for her work on our budget and the way she reports our finances. And in 2021, she also received the Auditor of State Award with distinction. She's an expert in her field. She's a leader in her industry. That was very, very apparent at the conference, and she continues to oversee the finances in our city with the utmost accountability, transparency, innovation, and integrity, and we are very, very lucky to have her as part of our team. Finally, the last 2 things I will mention is we have 2 groundbreakings this week. One, the high school. The school district will be celebrating a ceremonial official groundbreaking for the new high school. That takes place Thursday at 4:30. And immediately prior to that, there will be a groundbreaking ceremony over at the Crescent, where we will celebrate the groundbreaking for the third medical facility to be built at that location in the last 2 to 2.5 years. That 46,000 square foot building will house 4 medical practices, 3 specialty medical practices, and an independent surgical center. Of course, again, bringing high quality jobs, sustainable jobs to our area, as well as increasing the options for medical services for our residents. That area continues to just be a magnet for high quality medical providers in Central Ohio. So we're looking forward to launching that groundbreaking on Thursday and getting that third building underway, and hopefully being able to announce the fourth building very soon.
What is the time for that?
That one's 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock over that way, 4:30 over this way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
I have nothing further to add.
All that way to walk just to say that. All right, thank you, sir. Now time for a council comment. Ms. Angelou.
Well, I would like to say that Ms. Burry, Joanne Burry, is totally worthy of every one she has gotten. And we have the exceptional thing to be able to have her here. I forgot something very, very important from MORPC, and I'm going to bring it up right now. This is the most important thing that they do every year. They have to give us when we are going to have trick or treat. We have to make that decision, and it's always such a hard one. But the decision is that it will be on the 31st of October, which is a Monday. So that's when it's going to be. And actually, it's a 5th Monday, so we can just be there to hand out all those little things there. And I just would like to say that we have so many things that we are doing now, and I hope that the community will be able to see the efforts that all of us, but you, Mayor Jadwin, are doing just an amazing things that they're just happening, and it's just really a wonderful thing. I wake up in the morning, I'm going, well, I bet there's something else that's going to happen today, and it's always usually good.
I think that same thing.
So, and we have a great number of people here that are working hard, and I think that we should be very, very, very blessed, feel ourselves blessed to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McGregor, would you like to go again?
I will just add one thing. Last Saturday was homecoming for Gahanna, and I had 3 granddaughters go, and they had a wonderful time. There were hundreds of kids, had a great time, and I just thank the school for allowing them to have such a fun time. I heard nothing but good reports from it. And I will tell you a funny story. My grandson is a sophomore. He's very shy. His dad wanted him to go to homecoming. He didn't want to go. He said, okay, I'll tell you this. You can go to homecoming, or you can run the half marathon with your cousin the next day. He ran this half marathon with his cousin the next day. So, now, he is a cross-country runner, so. But we thought it was pretty funny that he made the decision, and that's okay. So anyway, that's all my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. First, I want to thank everyone who was here for the resolution, and thank Ms. Bowers for leading that. Thank all of our first responders. We got the email from Ms. Bowers encouraging us to invite loved ones who might be first responders. My brother-in-law is a firefighter and a medic with Columbus Fire, and of course, true to form, he couldn't make it here because he's picking up an extra shift this evening. So, but thanks to all of our first responders. Again, thanks to everyone who's participated in the public hearing or expressed their comments along the way on the rezoning application. It was nice to see the e-comment feature get used this evening, and I want to thank all of my colleagues thank Council for supporting that initiative earlier this year, and encourage folks to make use of it moving forward. unfortunately could not attend the MORPC Sustainability Conference. However, I was able to attend the Ohio Municipal League Conference last week. Lots of great things, lots of great conferences happening in the region. Great conversations on regional housing strategies, state and local taxation, and the impact of recent and current cases before the Ohio Supreme Court, as well as financial reporting compliance as it relates to the use and expenditure of ARPA funds. So for someone who nerds out on things like that, it was great fun. And that is it for me, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Padova?
Thank you. So thank you to everyone for coming and participating this evening in public comment and our hearing. I'm very pleased with how this rezoning has gone since it left planning. I was at that meeting, and people seemed a lot more neutral about this rezoning than they were then. So I really commend the residents of both Amberlea and Windward for really diving in and learning more about this process, and also being so respectful of everyone they're working with throughout the process and all the communications back and forth with the developer. I really hope that that continues. I've said that a few times. And I also want to thank Vice President Bowers for all of her hard work on fair housing. It was a no-brainer, and I'm glad that all of your hard work came to fruition. That's all from me.
Thank you. Mr. Schnitzer?
Thank you, Mr. President. I honestly did not have any prepared comments, but it's just kind of my nature as I sit here and observe and listen, various things pop into my head. So I jotted down some notes based on one of the comments from the proponents of the Morse Road development about the number of residents that were anticipated to be in that proposed development. And I guess I just thought back in about 3 years' time, we've had multifamily residential come forward on West Johnstown Road, Morrison Road, Tech Center, and now Morse Road. And all in, just quick back of the napkin, but yet very conservative math suggests that that's an increase in Gahanna's population of about 3.5%. Compare that to the state of Ohio between 2010 and 2020, that grew about 2.3%. So the city of Gahanna's population is anticipated to grow by about 1.5 times the rate of growth of that of the state of Ohio in about 1/3 of the time. The mathematical reality of that is, however, in an MSA greater than 2 million people, in a combined statistical area greater than 2.5 million people, unfortunately, that rate of growth is going to do very little to alleviate some of the housing pressures on our region. No real takeaway from that other than just an observation that obviously we have some housing pressures in the region, and one of our tasks is how do we balance that with the capabilities of our city, the demands of our city, the expectations of our current residents, and those are issues that we grapple with up here every single day just in the routine course of business. Shifting gears, it's kind of become a very commonplace for Joanne to receive these awards. So, I mean, and I hate to not get excited about it, but for the 7th time in a row, again, it's almost becoming boilerplate at this time. But nonetheless, we are very, very fortunate to have her. She's a great resource. She's always by the book, very ethical, professional. And so for all of those reasons, she helps us do our job. And so unfortunately, she's not in chambers today, but Madam Mayor, I trust you'll take our gratitude and let her know.
She'll be here next week. You can talk to her.
Thank you so much. That's all from me.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the mayor for bringing up the high school groundbreaking, and I apologize for my omission on bringing that up during my school board report. But hopefully you all can attend at 4:30 on Thursday for the groundbreaking ceremony. I also was able to attend the OML conference for one day on Thursday, this past Thursday. The big takeaway, I'll get into some of the meat later, but the big takeaway was that nearly everyone I talked to had something positive to say about Gahanna. and specifically received compliments on, oh, I think your finance director just received a GFOA award again, didn't she? She's incredible. So it was a real honor to hear that, and also that, hey, things are happening in Gahanna, and we're recognizing that. It's been years that has not necessarily been the case, and so it is exciting to see progress, policy, and so I'm grateful for the policy advancement from my colleagues tonight, but also job development and economic development happening here in the city. And the school project and the library project, and we have some really major capital improvements, public projects that are getting the attention of the region, and I think that that's going to bode well for our continued growth and development here. My favorite session, I also nerded out, but on something not finance related, because that is not my first love. But I attended this incredible panel from a Bricker and Eckler attorney, a presentation by a Bricker and Eckler attorney on municipal home rule. And the thing that I love about OML is that pretty much across the board, everyone is opposed to preemption, and everyone supports local rule, which I think everyone on council shares my feeling that we know our community best, right? And so we want to advance policies, and we want to be able to be adaptive to the needs, the shortcomings, and the opportunities that we see here in Gahanna. So I had a really wonderful, it was a really legal, intense presentation, and I'm going to submit for continuing ed credit for attending that. But the big takeaway that I found great about that is that the state, the GA really has to be very specific in their legislation in order for that legislation to preempt a local policy. Now, they do that all the time, and they can get very specific if they really want to preempt what we do, but they can't make general rules that preempt local rule. So that was the big takeaway from that. I think that's all I have for tonight then. I'm not going to repeat myself.
It's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, just some closing comments. A lot of my colleagues have actually said a lot of the things very, very well. And Mr. Snutzer, I'm always impressed on how you can just come up with stuff on the fly like that. It's like,
How the brain works. It's a blessing.
But you actually drill home a really important point. And even though the state of Ohio, it may not be as a whole increasing in population, but we've always known that Central Ohio is. This is going to be the epicenter of where everything is going to be happening. It's almost trite to say anymore about Intel, and now we're going to be talking about Honda too. Yeah. But I want to go back to a little bit. When I first started, it seems like a eon ago, I was talking about campaigning hard with this little diagram, and it was a circular diagram, and it was community, it was government, and it was business. And tonight, this agenda actually really encompasses all of that, all those things. And I really, really appreciate some of the aspects that we have wins for the city, we have wins for the community, and we have wins for a business. So I think the other aspect of government is it's always it's a municipal incorporation, and it's got entities, and it's got fiduciary responsibilities, and those are very, very important things. And it's supposed to set up a bedrock of infrastructure services and that kind of thing, and helping our business community integrate a little bit, and helping make sure that we do zoning appropriately. And the other thing the government's supposed to do is take care of people. The people is actually what makes the city function. It makes it we're alive. We have this vitality that we like to talk about. And so one of the things that we did tonight, we changed a little bit, and we passed the fair housing and the source of income, and congratulations on that. That's a big win for the city as a whole, for the community. And we actually even heard locally from a pastor. I was quite surprised and delighted to hear that, and a pastor actually using one of our e-tools. That's also fascinating. We're taking care of people, we're taking care of services, and you've heard the city, we're taking care of what we need to do. We've, been frustrated for eons about taking care of our own buildings, and now we have that. We have leadership in the administration with our staff, and we're moving in a very positive direction to address that. And so the city is actually moving in a very good direction. We're taking care of government, we're taking care of business, and we're taking care of people. And with that, I need a vacation. So I bid you all a very good night. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.